Hello, friends. My name is Miranda Jean. I am the Field People and Culture Lead for Smoky Bones. And in this little video series, I will be talking with Mr. Clint Cropp, who is the newly promoted GM to the Smoky Bones Melbourne, Florida location. I have had the wonderful pleasure working with Mr. Cropp now for over a year. We were internal together at the same restaurant, and we both recently got promoted into new roles, so it's very exciting. It is less of an interview and more just of a kind of sharing ideas and different theories and philosophies with each other, as our conversations tend to be. However, I hope you really enjoy it. The caveat and why I'm introducing the video this way is because there's a little bit of a technical difficulty at our first video. My camera wasn't front facing at first because I was using two different systems to record. So if you could just bear with it in the very beginning until the camera comes online, I would greatly appreciate it. But I hope that you enjoy it. It was such a wonderful conversation, as it always is talking to Mr. Cropp. And I hope that you either learn a little bit about Smoky Bones and why we are a great place to work, or you just enjoy the banter. So without further ado, this is the docu-series of Meet the People, or Meet the Team, with our Smoky Bones managers and RSC members. Enjoy!
I started as a dishwasher at Red Lobster. That was now 4 years ago. And I worked in the kitchen at Red Lobster. I got promoted within a year to be a kitchen manager. I spent about a year, maybe a year and a half as a kitchen manager there in Oklahoma. And then I moved with my girlfriend. She got a great job in Florida. And then I went to look for a job. I had maybe several job offers, and I happened to interview with Maranda, and I just knew I was in the right hands. So basically, based on her goals and aspirations, I said, you know what, there's going to be a lot of opportunity here. She spoke very highly of the executive team, and so that is pretty much why I work for Smoky.
Awesome. Oh, well, that's good. That's good. We've talked a little bit about that interview. Actually, we've talked a lot about that interview now, because we've worked together. You were hired in January of 2020. So your first week out of Smoky Bones training as an MIT, you were just kind of you delved deep into a pandemic. Very first week, pretty much first close, and the next day it's like, okay, we're shut down to takeout only.
Yeah, that was super trying. That was probably the most soul-crushing time of my life. I mean, I had just moved several states, finally got a good job. I felt like I was in great hands. I just got out of training. All right, tonight's my night. I'm going to do an amazing job. I'm going to give it all I got. And no one came in the building, no guests whatsoever. And I didn't know what to do, to panic or what. Anyway, then that was my first night out of training. Then I'm not sure how long the takeout portion of the pandemic lasted, but very trying time for sure.
Yeah, and honestly, it was, a lot of sacrifices that we were asked to make for that. And you were brand new. I mean, you had been in the company all of, at that point, 7 weeks. So what was going through your head then?
I think on the topic of sacrifices, I thought, you know what, honestly, I don't actually care. Even though, if you know me, I feel like you probably know that I definitely care what I earn. But more important than earning, if earning is so important to me, and even yet there's something more important, which is learning. I felt like I was learning. I was learning a deeper sense of leadership. I feel like I knew how to run a restaurant, but I feel like being near you, which then I think we worked probably a great majority of shifts together. So being near you, I felt like, you know what, it's almost like the other side of the coin. I have my strengths and opportunities, and almost to me, maybe the exact opposite is you. So I feel like that was like super enlightening. Um, at every turn, I felt myself being able to be introspective, which I think is what causes growth. Just constantly thinking about my decisions, thinking about your decisions. I feel like it was just a really good pairing. I didn't stay for necessarily, which is maybe toxic, but I didn't stay for necessarily like the restaurant or the business or the money or the opportunity. I genuinely stayed for the growth. I felt like I'm learning something here that I'm not going to get elsewhere. I don't know what it is, but I'm just going to see it through.
Yeah, it's interesting because the other side of the coin when you said that is exactly how and why I think that our pairing worked really, really well, was because I hired, when we did hire you, and our director at the time, Rob, and I aligned to hire you, it was because you could bring all of the pieces that I didn't have, that I needed to grow on, and also that you had the business maturity and the willingness to adapt and learn very quickly, because it was going to be a lot throwing at you at one time, and it was. And I think, and then we weren't, obviously in January we didn't predict a mass pandemic that would cripple our industry for a year. So this was just going into it in a stable environment, and then we were coming out of it in the pandemic, and it was really just, you saw everything from the opposite end of where I saw. And we often talk about this, about how we meet in the middle. You always come from one end and I'll come from the exact opposite end, and we'll kind of just externalize my feeling and your thought, and then we'll get to the same conclusion. So it acted really as a safe, like a stopgap. All of the atrophies that I was missing, you picked up for. All of the pieces that I dropped, you picked up for, and vice versa. So it was actually coincidentally, or maybe just geniusly planned, a great pairing for sure, definitely.
So I think maybe the next topic that's interesting is, in my mind anyway, is so maybe the restaurant industry for several years, maybe 5 years, has been declining slowly. And so there's a certain strategy to manage that. And when we came out of takeout only, still in the pandemic, what we were experiencing then was we had a level business. We've been doing basically the same sales for several weeks, and then all of a sudden, dining rooms are opening. The staff's returning, the guests are returning, and now it's about sales growth. And so, managing a growing business is a completely different ballgame than a declining business. So then we worked together to grow the team very rapidly, train very rapidly. So keep the ones that we already had, and I think that was maybe the rapid decline and the rapid sales growth might be, the experience that we look at for the rest of our lives or the rest of our careers is like, man, that was really defining. We really saw the best and the worst in each other. And obviously it worked out. Our restaurant, Melbourne, is growing in sales even still. So I think that's very special.
I do. I think to your point, I mean, it took a lot of, I wouldn't say vulnerability necessarily on both of our parts, but in a way to reveal the opportunities that we had on the level that we did, in this very like visceral level of, we would come together, and sometimes we really didn't agree on a decision. I mean, we would sit down and it was almost like it was the meeting of the minds of us both trying to argue each other's point on why it was the best, but we were honestly saying the exact same thing in different ways, and we couldn't make each other see it. But I think the best thing about what we were able to do with Melbourne and our leadership team was that it was very much towards the end a complete circle of trust, honestly. I trusted you and your decision. Anything that you did, we were aligned. I trusted Dave and his decisions. And granted, we might come together and have a conversation in our internal circle, but I honestly trusted every single one of my management team being and leading as an aligned team.
I think it is also worth noting just the management team, especially, but no less so the fire starters. We had every single person that stayed with us through the pandemic. We'll take out a portion of it. We gained a huge trust with those people, where it's kind of a strange dynamic, where we're all making the same sacrifice. It's literally an equal sacrifice. We probably, hopefully, we don't have that opportunity again. But I would say that the level of trust that we gained in each of those people and each of those people in us, being that was mutual, I think that's also very special. So we took that trust, and when we came out of the pandemic, it was like, the famous flywheel. It was like, wow, now we're growing at a huge accelerated rate, because those people have got our backs, we've got their backs, and there's absolutely no questioning in trust. So
yeah.
I think that was also a very special moment.
Yeah. And I think too, with what you're talking about, by aligning like we did and picking who we did when you look back at who we picked to stay and who actually made the sacrifice to come into work every single day, 40 hours a week for us, with us, it was, 60% of them are managers right now, or HMs. I mean, really, that's the line. We're going into HMing. 2 of them have been promoted. Well, 3, including yourself, but 2 of our hourly fire starters have been promoted into salary positions. 2 of our hourly fire starters were promoted into HM positions. So from what we did, it created this aligned team. And then when we hired, we matched that energy and that intensity. We didn't hire to drop that team's commitment down. We hired to match that team. It was kind of like we had a very rare opportunity, which is the important thing is, yeah, nobody really wanted to go through the pandemic, but we often say the pandemic was one of the best things that happened to Melbourne, because we were able to really, truly come together, kind of cut out all of the dead weight and the negativity, align as a team. And then when we came out of there, when we hired, it was a brand new vision. It was brand new momentum. It was growing very, very quickly through a bunch of things that we did organically and just sales building. And then it was equally paired with that energy and that excitement from these new fire starters coming onto a team that we're like, yeah, we're going to win. Those calls or talks we would have with the team, like, we're going to win. We're going to be top 5. So you're coming with us, or, those kinds of that momentum. And it was really powerful, honestly. And especially like August, September, October time, when we were just building, and then November, December, January of August, September, October of 2020, when we're just coming out of kind of restabilizing into the holiday season, because October hit, right into September, October hit, we're just like, poof, like Dogecoin to the moon level kind of rocket. So I think that, I think that was, it was an insanely unique opportunity that I don't know, had we not come together as a management team, and had you not come on board when we did, I don't think that would have been at all where we would have been. That could have gone many ways. And I think we took it the best way possible. And we were able to, align. And granted, you and I had and with Dave as well, conversations of panic in those dark days. We call them the dark days for a reason, but we were able not to bring that to the team. And we were able to kind of externalize all of that anxiety on each other, and then go back to the team and be like, no, this is a vision, and we're positive, and we got to move forward, which is really a partnership. I mean, we were we were not so much boss and subordinates as it was an aligned partnership, which I felt was empowering for me too, because I learned so much from you and you helped me get where I am today for sure, by just challenging me and my ways. And we often talked about rambling here, so you have to ask a question next, but we talk about the book that we read, and we're talking what got you here won't get you there, and in being successful in spite of your flaws versus being successful yeah, in spite of your flaws or because of your flaws, right? So you would say, like, you would challenge and say you don't have to be like that, that you where you are in spite of. And I would be like, yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, at first I didn't like to hear it, obviously, but I was like, you know what? You're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. I would actually be better if I worked on this trait of mine that's holding me back. And it was that kind of open communication where we would really, it was like development 24/7 at all times. It was like development, like, what do you think my flaw is? What do you think I can work on today? From both of us, that really kind of pushed us forward, I think.
That's very interesting. I think that it's pretty rare, ultimately the leader, whoever the leader is, um, must be the first one to make the move. So if a subordinate, let's say, is ready to challenge, attempt to develop their superior, that doesn't always go so well. And so it's that almost believing that maybe we're closer to equal than maybe titles may dictate. And I not to say that I am. I still don't say that, but anyway, in the mind.
Yeah, but I say that.
Well, you say that, but in the mind, at least, you're willing to take feedback at a much increased rate. You see, so because you're taking my feedback, then I'm willing. Okay, well, if she's going to listen to me, then I'll listen to anything she says. And so now we're growing at a hugely accelerated rate. I think that's pretty rare. Usually, people will get, at the chance of feedback, which is really the point of growth. When someone tells you what you need to work on, I wish someone would tell me every day, all day, 24/7. If you can't take that feedback, that's going to be the difference maker, because most of the time, maybe, speaking on like the speed at which someone can grow, I think the question is, how much feedback can you get? And how do you get that feedback? Obviously, you have to do quite a good job, and you have to maybe shore up some of your boss's opportunities. And now they've got a whole lot of time to talk to you. So then you go, all right, buddy, I did all that stuff, and now I'm ready to hear it. What else can I do for you? And that work, but ultimately, that feedback is really the way that you're going to end up growing.
For sure. And being, when you talked about being open to that feedback, if you are, it's so easy, right? I think we all kind of do it early on, where we take that feedback and we internalize it and we allow it to hurt our feelings. And we say, oh, I'm not like that, or how dare they? Or we get very defensive about it. And it's because we're insecure in our leadership. We talk a lot about leadership insecurity. And we talk a lot about just having that leadership dynamic where we're, not confident, we're insecure, we're trying to lead very, very boisterously because it's a front to protect our inner layer of, we don't know what we're doing and we're not confident in our decisions. And that's the same thing when you can't take feedback, I think. And early on, it was hard for me to take feedback for sure. And I would struggle with it. And then it got to a point where you said, we talked one time about advice, and you said, you told me very, very, very good piece of advice that helped me, was that I was too particular on what advice I took based on how I judged a particular person. And you said, why don't you just take the advice no matter what and try it? Nobody's telling you you have to do it. It doesn't matter, if that person you judge them to be good or bad or of value, they might be the best person in that particular skill set. And I'm denying myself the chance to grow because I won't listen to them because I don't trust or value them. And you said you listen to literally everybody. You're like, I just listen to every advice and will apply it. Well, we're talking about in a restaurant, in a professional, you'll say, okay. And then if it doesn't work for you, you very quickly say, nope, not for me. And you say that's out and you can move on, but you make the decision on your own by looking at it objectively. Whereas I didn't do that at all. Like I was very subjective in who I listened to. And that was a detriment to me 100%, because then not only did I see my mentors like they could do no wrong, they're perfect, right? I also couldn't value the insight I was getting from everybody around me. And that little conversation we had was just like instrumental. I just awakened like my third eye. And I was just like, it really did. It was huge. It was so valuable. And I think about like, had I been too afraid or too defensive and wouldn't allow you to give me that feedback as my mentee, if you will, then I wouldn't have made that valuable connection. I wouldn't have been able to say, he's right.
I think on that topic, yeah, definitely the variable there would be having a very good filter, and being able to make decisions very rapidly. If you just take advice from any old person and then it doesn't work and you just keep doing it until you get some new advice, that's probably not the best idea. But watching someone, I'm very much so a people watcher. So I don't know if that helps me or hurts me. I think it helps me. So I watch someone. If they have a better way of doing something, I just take their way. I take their way, and then I try to maybe if I think it's the best way in my restaurant. I don't care if it's about, frying tortilla chips. If there's a best way to fry the tortilla chips, let's teach everyone how to do it. Now we have huge efficiency around tortilla chips. Okay, next thing. What if it's cutting box tops? Okay, someone's got the best way. We just do that. And I just show everyone. And that's honestly, that's just what I've done. Obviously, those are pretty low level things in my mind, but that also applies to higher level skill sets. If it's about running an entire restaurant, one valuable, not even skill, but trait, a great day, maybe a manager, maybe a general manager, or what have you. What do you think the one trait of that person would be? What's the most important?
I think we kind of just talked about it, and that's the willingness to learn and to, I would say humility, if we're going to even be bigger, humility. You can't go into leading thinking you know everything as a GM or any level position, even moving forward. But the same thing as, when you are the top greeter, and I did it as well. I was birthed in the Smoky Bones greeter station, but it was, once I knew everything about greeters, I was like, I know all there is to be a greeter. And I was a little bit arrogant and cocky about that because I was like, haha, I'm the best greeter known to man and nobody can teach me something. And that was really, number one, not only off-putting to your employees or your coworkers, but also limited me so much from learning literally anything else, because it was just like, aha, I'm the best greeter, I'm the best. It's also, again, factoring in another part of our book club, Master of None. You don't want to be a master of only one thing. I mean, we're generalists. That's what we do, especially in a smaller company like we are. We don't have the luxury of only knowing KM. A KM has to know everything about the restaurant, and a service manager has to know everything about the restaurant. I mean, granted, we have AORs or areas of responsibility, but if I just went in and said, as a GM going in and said, I know how to be the best GM, I'm the GM, I know how to be the best GM. I mean, how not inviting or empowering is that to you? If I'm just like, well, I know this is, I know how to do it. And I remember you came to me with something and you were like, what if we do it this way? And I was like, I don't think we've ever done it that way. But why not? Let's try it. I don't think that we ever said no. If we talk about inventory at 4 in the morning, and we're like, oh, you have to be in here at inventory at 4 in the morning because at the time Melbourne had the truck at 6:30. So we got in the inventory at 4 in the morning. And you're like, yeah, I don't know, because you are a person, and you've said this before, you want to do the least most efficient amount of work for the most possible. Well, maximize. You're not lazy, but you want to do, if you can make a way to make it easier and more efficient, you very quickly find a way to do it. Like, you don't accept the status quo. If this step takes 55 things, and if I say this is the smoky bones step and this is the way, you say, I can immediately cut off 28 spots of this. Like, I'm not doing all 58. And you were honest and transparent about that. Like, I would show you something or a method that I knew, and I said, this is the best way for me, but you'd be like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. You're like, I will get the same results and I will do it the same way. And I'm not talking about standards or procedures like, a prep list. I'm talking about like when we were generating reports or we were doing this, we talk about forecasting, literally the way I would do sales forecasting. And then you were like, nah, blah, 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 and you cut off like 20 minutes from that. And you were just like, there, like, this gives you what you need. Granted, it might not be as in depth that you did, but it gives you the same results. How close? Like, literally, you would say, like, how close were you this way versus how close you were this way? Is that 0.01% you were off really worth all of the extra trouble? Really? And I was like, you know what? This kid's big braining, because it's true. Because you had a different way to see it. And that made me really not focus on this intense details. Like, this detail has to be right, because you think, I put 5 hours into one little tiny thing that's perfect, but what did I get out of that 5 hours? Was it really worth it? Like, if you calculated the amount of time that we were just paid to get that one thing done.
You can spin more plates if you don't need every single plate at once to spin perfectly. If you can't move on, until it's just perfect, that is definitely one skill set that is valuable. It's just, unfortunately, in many ways, I wish that was me, but, and not to say that I have low standards or that I can't do, a great job. I just think that for some reason, I'm very much so just challenge the status quo. I think that's maybe the best way to say it. I challenge the status quo, and I never just accept, okay, this is the 55-step way, and that's that. And the director that promoted me, he told me that running a restaurant is like spinning 20 plates at one time, let's say. And so most people will spin one plate perfectly and then move on and spin one plate perfectly. And then by the time they get to the next one, the other one's fallen. And so the goal is to either learn to spin the plates faster or get someone else to spin the plates. And I guess my approach is to spin as many plates as possible, as perfectly as possible, but not at the expense of time. And so in that way, it trains a different skill set, which is basically, to your point, is if a perfect result requires 5 hours, and let's say that's 100% perfect, but I can get a 97 on the test and it takes me 20 minutes. Well, now I've got 5 hours freed up, almost an entire 5 hours. I can go paint the restaurant. I can go, do whatever I want. There's all sorts of things. We can regrout the kitchen, whatever it is. But in that way, there will be so many more opportunities to get big projects done, big things done that will make a huge impact, as opposed to just making the forecast to the dollar, which is obviously important. Not trying to say it's not. Obviously, there's standards. It's very important to me as well. That's my way of thinking.
Yeah, I think perfectionism is one of those not all flaws that people like to say. Like when you say, what are your opportunities? And they're like, well, I'm a perfectionist. It's one of those like, I'm a perfectionist. And it kind of comes off as, yeah, it's a flaw. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, but you're going to get I'm detail oriented. And that comes off as kind of like oh, okay. But honestly, it's really a huge detriment, especially in our industry. Being a perfectionist is extremely, I mean, it could derail you for a long time. And it was something that I had to learn as well through my journeys. I was at one point an extreme perfectionist, almost to an incredible fault, because I could not let go of things that were not perfect. And when I became a GM, the more and more I was able at delegating, I was comfortable with delegating and saying, the results that your colleagues give you aren't perfect, but it's kind of like, all right, well, this is where we are and this is what we do, and you train and you get better and you get better. And it was easier. I got more satisfaction out of seeing you grow and Dave grow and the others grow than I did of something being perfect, honestly, because that was such a finite, and like, who, only you care about it being perfect. Honestly, truly, only you care about it being perfect. Nobody else cares. If it's good enough, it's good enough, baby, move on. Right. But seeing you guys learn it and win and make something right, and seeing you beat me in forecasting. I mean, you were, that one time when we were super obsessed about forecasting when you first learned it, and you were like, what was it, 0.9% to the forecast? Like, seeing you do that is way more satisfying than me being 0.9 forecast to forecast,
Yes. So I think that what I feel is that the further we grow, the further away from I'm not sure how to say that, the further away from the result we are. And so, even though we're still responsible for the result, although, it's very important to us, we're several sections removed, right? So being able to get the plate to spin without me spinning the plate is what it's all about. If I can start out, say, hey, this is the new objective, someone else gets it going, and then I come back, hey, that looks good, and I move on. And then, just come back to check, okay, everything's looking good. Okay, everything's looking good. That's where you want to be. If you're always trying to, catch falling plates, it's just not going to work.
Because then you get more plates.
Yes.
Then you can look at more plates, which means you have more opportunities. And then, there's more things that you can learn because you're not focusing on one dropping. You have 10 that you're worried about can turn into 50 that you are just delegating management of your plates, right? Which is the big picture. Alrighty, Sarah, I could talk to you literally all night. We've had many hours of long conversation about development and this kind of stuff, our big brain, galaxy brain conversations. But unfortunately, I don't think anybody's going to watch this because we blabbered on far too long about things. I think we asked a total of 2 questions and just mostly did what we normally do. And that's just, it's pontificate the leadership philosophies that we kind of see. But regardless, if it brings any one person help or it makes one person say, then I think we did a good job. So thank you so much for your time. Congratulations again on your promotion. I know how hard that you've worked for it and how far you've grown. It was like seeing a Pokemon very quickly go from its baby to its I always said that. I said you're evolving, or you've evolved. But yeah, it was a delight, and it's well deserved, and I can't wait to see what you do in the future for the company, for sure, because you are an asset for us.
Thank you very much.
All right, have a good day.
Yes.
Bye.
You too.